Welcome to the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Here with us today, we have astronaut Mike Fossum. Mike, thank you for coming today. We have a lot going on station today and outside of station, and all of it relates to station. But first of all, Mike is a veteran of space flights. He's got 3 space flights under his belt. The most recent one was with the Expedition 29 mission where he served as the commander, and so where he spent on the International Space Station for 167 days in space.
That's
It's a
right.
long time. Thank you and welcome. So let's first talk about what we just heard. We did get a notification here of a potential conjunction with the International Space Station. Can you
Yeah,
talk to us a
well,
little about
sure.
that?
And really, conjunction is a kind of a fancy word for we're getting kind of close to something. We're watching a number of different pieces of debris. Most of them are like satellite upper stages, boosters, things like that. And there's many of them in orbit around the Earth, and some of them are at our orbit, or the same kind of orbit or altitudes that the space station is located in. And right now, the trajectory officer got word just a short time ago that there's a significant piece that they don't have a real solid track on it, and it's kind of an odd science to try to understand where these things are located and predict where they will be in the future. But this one just popped up as a concern, so they're watching it closely. Unfortunately, they won't get another good look at it to refine the tracking information until this evening. Its time of closest possible approach to the crew is approximately 1:30 in the morning, I think 1:38
Yeah, yeah,
a.m.
138.
Houston
That's what
time
I
or
have.
Central time. So they're going to be watching that closely, and shortly they'll be notifying the crew about this. When you learn about these things, and these things happen every few weeks, where normally we do a debris avoidance maneuver, which basically means we just take that opportunity to give the space station a little bit of a reboost. So we burn the engines, lift the altitude up a little bit, change our orbit, and that increases the distance away from that future, passing event. This one we learned about too late, and so um, there's a possibility that we will have to do what we call a shelter in place.
Okay.
We've had 6 instances in the space station program where we've had kind of a late notification, and there was a concern that we might have to shelter in place, and that means we close all of the hatches on the U.S. part of the space station and retreat into the Soyuz spacecraft to minimize the risk of a possible damage to the station from this passing piece of debris. Twice we have actually done the shelter in place, and I was fortunate, if you call it that, to do the second one last summer on June 28th when
That's
we
right.
were fairly new to the space
That's right.
station.
And how long were you guys sheltered in place for that?
About
Do you recall?
45 minutes or an hour.
Okay, it's not too
You want to
long.
get everything no, it's not bad. It's a little disruption to the day, and everybody's a little nervous while you go in
Sure.
to do that. But it's a way of just increasing safety and being prudent. Space is a very big place, and there's a lot of margin built into these predictions. But once you get there's also uncertainty associated with it.
Okay.
So it's a safe thing to do when there's going to be something gets a little close enough to make us nervous. We take different actions depending on how much time we have to do, and that's what's going on now.
Okay, great. Thanks for that information. So again, we'll just stay tuned and follow along with that. I'm sure we'll have breaking news if it's necessary, and there's a shelter in place. We'll make sure that the public gets that information as well.
Yeah, as I understand it, the website will be updated as we learn more information. The website will be updated, and if we get into the point in the middle of the night, actually very early in the cruise day, we'll have live TV and coverage of that event.
Okay, great. And so folks can follow along if you want to keep updated on that potential conjunction with the space station. Go to www.nasa.gov/station, and you can get your updates. So now, again, another top of the news item for us is the launch of the ATV-3. This is the European's cargo ship that is bringing up 7 tons of supplies, and it's exciting, right?
Oh, this is
How
really
exciting is that to get
Yeah,
this kind of cargo, right?
I mean, it was a great launch last night here in Houston. We watched it from Houston, of course. It's the 3rd launch of the European Space Agency cargo ship, the ATV-3. I was fortunate actually to be at the space station to see the first and second vehicles. So now they're finally launching one that I won't see in person up there. But it was a great launch to as the vehicle took off, everything has gone fine. As always, we're watching a couple of really tiny, small things with it, but everything seems to be on track. The crew's been practiced and prepared. The space station is ready to receive the ATV as it will basically chase the space station down for a few days. We're working the orbital mechanics and getting in closer to the station until it's ready to attach to the aft end.
Great. And I know it'll be in orbit for at least 5.5 days before it does go and dock for that docking. That docking, again, is scheduled to take place on Wednesday, March 28th. The docking is to take place at 5:32 p.m. Central Time. Now, real quick, I have a question for you that came to us on...
from Twitter.
Yeah, from Twitter. Yeah. We pulled the verse and want to get some questions for you. So first we have... this Twitter question comes from Jupiter Fix.
From Norway.
Yeah. Is there a lot of work for the crew on the arrival of ATV-3? And is there any good food stuff for the crew aboard?
Okay, absolutely to both. If everything works right, the ATV will automatically come in and do all of its automatic rendezvous and all the way to docking without any assistance from the crew on board. The flight control team on the ground, of course, is monitoring everything closely and interacting with the different systems. But from the crew's point of view on board the space station, it should all work automatically. But that's never good enough for us. So the crew is actually ready to take manual control. And that's, I think it's Oleg
Kononenko and Andre
Kuipers.
That's right.
That are trained to do that. So Oleg will be the main flying person, and Andre is assisting him with the procedures and backing him up. And so it's a very choreographed thing. They train quite a bit for this, just in case. And they'll be monitoring different parameters as the ATV is doing its approach and coming in close to the station. So if anything doesn't meet the limits or the expectations, they'll take over manual control and bring it in. So they have to practice that, make sure all of the systems, the data systems, the tracking systems, and their flight control system that they use to interface with it and do the remote control piloting is all working properly on the station. So they're all pumped up and ready to go.
Good stuff. And in fact, today they're actually training. They're doing an onboard training as well of the rendezvous and docking. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they go through it all, and it's important to do that. Now, when you get the vehicle, and it's always great to have a cargo ship come up from Earth because, well, there's a lot of supplies that you're waiting for, but what everybody really likes is the stuff that's packed just behind the hatch. And the vehicles from the ground usually come up at a slightly higher pressure than the space station, and the particular one of the Russian Progress cargo ships that came up, we were all near the hatch, and we started to equalize that pressure, and this air is coming from the Progress into the ship, and we're all gathered around, so looking for the smells of Earth. And in that particular case, Earth smelled like oranges. Because there were some oranges on the ship, and they had, so the odor, the smell of the oranges kind of filled that air, and when it came through the little tiny valve into the space station, oranges. We couldn't wait to get the hatch open and get to some of that fresh fruit and vegetables. So oranges, apples, onions, garlic are kind of the common things that have a pretty good shelf life. Yes, tomatoes. That have a pretty good shelf life that can, make the trip. And so everybody's looking forward to that.
Great. Well, that answers the good stuff part of the question. So let's move along to now one of the other things that the crew is working on in advance of that, the arrival of the ATV-3. It's a little bit of cleanup of the permanent multi-purpose module that is also known as Leonardo, the space closet.
Right.
Tell me about
what that is. It's also known as our basement.
It is the basement.
It's down, and there's no up or down in space, but you still know where the down is located, and it's a great big storage area, but we're bringing a moving van up, 3,000 pounds of equipment coming up on ATV-3. You have to have a place to put it, and so that is significant, and we've got to just make sure that all of the things we have there right now are organized and cleaned up, and you make room to bring in all of this new stuff. Or the management of your spare parts, all of these things that come up can really eat up a lot of crew time. And we're not there just to rearrange boxes and bags and hunt for lost things. We're there to do other kinds of work. So.
Now, what I understand, there's a lot more involved than just, it's not like moving furniture from one room to another room. It is literally a lot more than that because you have to maintain the inventory management
Right,
system
right, right.
to know where things
It's an
are. Things
electronic
have to be
database,
labeled,
right, that helps us find things.
and then all the while you're floating. So it's a little more difficult than what.
You can't just set all those things on the ground outside the garage as you
Sure.
find places to put them. You have to, tack them down, have the bungee cords ready and things like that, so you can temporarily stow things in certain places, and then move them to their final location, because it's a big place, and in our garages or our basements, we might have things setting on the floor or setting on shelves. In space, it can sit on the ceiling as easy as it can sit on the floor. You can bungee it to the wall, and so you have things in all three dimensions. It can be anywhere. It can be above that ceiling panel, if you will. And so you have to really keep track of these things in an electronic database. It's really important because when you lose them, they're really hard to find because
Sure.
you have to look everywhere, and there's a lot of stuff.
Sure. I recall your mission, and you were looking for a tube of grease for the treadmill. No, for the advanced resistive exercise
Right.
device, and that was a lot of fun
Oh
watching
my.
you hunt
Right.
that down.
How are we going to find this?
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of the ARED,
Mhm.
so also today, Burbank had also spent some time earlier this morning on the 6-month maintenance of the treadmill.
It's
What
time
is,
already. We did the last
yeah.
6 months. It
So
seems like just
what all is
yesterday.
involved with that?
It's open up all of the panels, get into the details, clean it out for one, because dust will accumulate. And we clean the station every week. Some of the filters in different parts of the station get cleaned very regularly. But there's other areas back behind closeout panels that it's time to, you need to periodically just get in there, clean everything up, inspect it, re-grease some of the moving parts, and make sure that nothing has shaken loose. Because that treadmill gets a lot of abuse. You get big guys like me on there pounding along, running miles on the treadmill, and it takes a lot of abuse. So you need to just make sure everything's okay and do minor adjustments before it turns into equipment damage.
Okay, great. Well, we just had some video up on NASA television as well. I want to go ahead and go to one more Twitter
Sure.
question, and we're getting close to. Also later today, we have an event where the commander of Burbank, Don Pettit, and also Andre Kuipers will take a break and talk with Bloomberg News out of Moscow to talk about the U.S. and Russian cooperation. And so we'll have to break for that in just a little bit. But real quick, the next question here is, let's see if I can look this up. Comes from Fly for Calm. I have always wondered, what is the most humbling thing about seeing Earth from space?
Wow. I think for me, the most humbling thing about seeing Earth from space is just knowing, it's a magnificent view, and it's always just amazing. In the daytime, you see all of the continents rolling by. In the nighttime, you see the city lights, the aurora lights, which are stunning. And just to realize how few people have really had the opportunity to see it from this vantage point, to me is really humbling. And I know how fortunate I am to be part of this most outrageous of all humankind's adventures.
Sure. Well, great. Thank you very much for answering that. And also, I know that you came over here in a hurry because you were just out at the NBL pool. I don't know if we have time to pull up any video, but we do have Sunny Williams and Aki Hoshide. Yeah, we actually do have some video for you. So they are both working on a practice run at the NBL, and this is a practice run for spacewalk, something you know about.
Oh, yeah. I've spent a lot of hours out there at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. Sunny and Aki are launching in August, so they're one of the next crews to head up to the space station. And it looks like they may get a spacewalk to do a little bit of maintenance work on the station. So I wanted to talk to them about some ideas for tools and equipment that we've been talking about, and decided to go out there this morning to help them suit up and then show them exactly how to configure those things on their suits. So I got to watch them get started on their run this morning. They're doing great.
Great, good stuff. So again, Sunny Williams, she had flown aboard the space station aboard for Expedition 14. So it's been a long time since she's been there. I bet the
Yeah.
station's going to look quite a bit different when she gets there. She also established the world record for females with 4 spacewalks in her belt, and then Peggy Whitson surpassed her a little
Right.
after that. Then also Aki had flown aboard STS-124. He was
With
on your
me,
mission.
right.
And so they are both scheduled to fly aboard ISS as the Expedition 3233 crew member. And again, that launch is set for this summer, and we look forward to that as well. Thank you very much for coming out today. As always,
Oh
it's a
yeah,
pleasure
it's
talking
great
with
to be
you.
here.
And we're going to go ahead and get out so we can prepare for that in-flight event that's going to be taking place here in just a couple minutes.
Okay.
Again, it is going to be Commander Burbank and Don Pettit, and also astronaut. European Space Agency astronaut Andre Kuipers, who will be talking with Bloomberg News. Thank you so
You
much for
bet.
coming
Hey, it's
out.
great to come over here. It's great to watch the crew and what's going on the space station. It's an amazing place, and these are very dear friends that are up there right now. We handed the keys to Dan just before we left, of course, and have been staying close to the mission, and just really appreciate everything that's going on. They're doing great. They're having a lot of fun. They're getting a lot of work done, and it's exciting to see the mission continue. Thanks a bunch.
Great, thank you. And that's it for today, ISS Update, and have a good weekend. This is Mission Control Houston.